Hello my friends, welcome back to another episode of r/ProRevenge. So today's episode is going to be all about people parking their cars wherever they please, and the revenges are pretty sweet. I hope you stay for the stories today and subscribe for future videos. This first story is titled, Park in Our Disabled Spot, Enjoy Selling Your Home. Sorry for making this long, but the context is pretty important. So my little sister, who's the sweetest girl in the world, is 12 years old, but can't walk or communicate. Her mental age is around 6 months. She obviously can't attend a regular school, but since we live in a big city, there's a wonderful school for kids like her. Even though we don't own a car, since we don't need one, we got the city to put up signs in front of the house, designating a 4-meter parking spot for wheelchair pickup and drop-off for her school bus every morning. The signs went up perhaps 2 years ago, and after the first week, we never really had any issues since most of our neighbors are wonderful and totally understanding of the designated spot. For some context, we live in a poorer community. We're not struggling to get by any means, but we're no Bill Gates. But sadly, the neighborhood gets a lot of self-centered people with their Mercedes-Benz or Audis honking at the bus while my sister gets loaded onto the school bus. This really pisses us off, as well as the other sane people that witness it. Naively, we thought this would be the extent of the unpleasant interactions. In September, we woke up on a Monday morning to find a shiny BMW parked in our disabled spot. It wasn't just partially in it, it was positioned perfectly to take up the entire spot. To make things worse, there were about a dozen open spots on the block, and it's not like they were occupied that morning since we wake up at 6 a.m. We were baffled. I'd seen this car many times since last July, and it was definitely the same car since there weren't many burgundy sports cars in the neighborhood. It was usually parked about 20 meters south on the street, so we knew it belonged to a neighbor a few doors down. We did all the basics in this type of situation. We took a picture, took down the license plates, and called the police to report it. The cops came by within the hour and wrote a big fat ticket. I believe it was for $700, but don't quote me on it. Anyways, it was a significant amount. Around noon, a smug, angry guy came knocking on my door. It was obvious that it was the owner of the car, so I made a quick decision to record the conversation or screaming match on my phone. I opened the door, and before I could say a thing, this douche lays into me. He's in his mid-40s. He accuses me of all things, ranging from putting up those signs this morning to frame him for being racist, to us not liking him because he's rich. He goes on to say that disabled parking spots shouldn't even be a thing, that they're always empty anyways. And he also said that we should pay for his undeserved ticket, that it isn't even an inconvenience since the spot right next to us was free and my sister could have got on the bus from there, blah blah blah. Once he finished, I said okay and shut the door in his furious face. He rang the doorbell another 5 times before storming off. To my satisfaction, the recording caught everything fairly clearly. In the evening, I told my parents what happened and gave my dad a copy of the recording. We have a pretty tight-knit community for the most part, and there's a neighborhood Facebook group with around 3,000 members. My dad decided to post a summary of what happened, along with the recording and a picture of the car in our handicap spot on the page. There was immediate uproar, with people saying that they would fight back or whatever. And we were humbled by the feeling that our community was standing up for us, but we didn't think anything would come of it. The next day, I leave the house to go to school and walk by the guy's car, which was back in his normal spot, and notice that the front right tire was deflated. Upon closer inspection, it was slashed. As I said, our community's tight-knit, but I can't say I expected anything like this to happen. The guy must have seen the Facebook post because he didn't come back to our house to complain or accuse us of anything. The following weeks were sweet. Whenever I saw him in public, people would go up to him and remind him that he was a horrible human being. In November, his house had a for sale sign in the window. The house market had also gone down by a bit. I'm always kind of curious how much houses similar to ours are selling for, so once I saw the for sale sign, I rushed home to check the house listings, and lo and behold, he was selling for $90,000 less than what it was going for last year, July. He really wanted to get out of our neighborhood. While his crime wasn't nearly worth $90,000, I must say that I don't feel bad. Worst case scenario, he sells that obnoxious car of his, which would easily cover the lost money. Let's just say we haven't had a single car parked in my sister's spot since. Until this story, I had no idea that you could have a dedicated parking spot in front of your house designated as a handicap spot. It sucks that the guy basically ruined his reputation by the community and had to move away, but a lot of people with their heads screwed on would have had the common sense to say, hey, this family dedicated this spot as handicapped for a reason. Let's not park in it. This next story's titled, Ma'am, you can't be parking in the loading zone. So, I ended up ruining someone's day a while back, all over a little sign that reads, no parking, loading zone between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m., Monday to Friday. I was delivering to a larger mixed retail strip mall in a Toronto suburb. The place doesn't have a rear delivery area, so by design, there's a blocked off area on the side of the complex to allow delivery vehicles, garbage, and couriers access to unload during the day. The place also has a medical center next door. That medical center charges for parking, whereas the strip mall doesn't. Being so, enterprising cheap people will park and walk over, even though a multitude of signs prohibiting the practice are plastered all over the lot. So the complication is that the loading area is close to the medical arts building and has parking lines laid down, but has a sign that says no parking, loading zone between 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday to Friday. Dozens of trucks use this lot daily for their needs. However, it's not often that a full-size semi, me, has to use it. I need every inch of that lot to position properly so I could get the freight off and on my merry way. Often I'll arrive, and there's a single car or two occupying a space. They're a bother, but can be moved around easily. On this morning, I'm rolling into the lot when a full-sized Escalade pulls in behind me and parks right beside the loading ramp on one spot that usually ruins my approach. There's like 50 spots in the loading zone to choose from, and like 500 spots in the actual parking lot. I rolled down my window and motioned that I needed to use the ramp. Now, most self-aware, self-conscious people would get the hint. Nope. Mrs. Self-Important decided that since she's parked, y'all can deal with it. She unloads her booger eaters into the stroller and obviously ignores me as I'm protesting her parking choice. My parting shot was, great example you're setting for your kids, lady. And it earned me some shade and a casual obscured middle finger salute. Fine then. I have nothing but time on my hands. I called the towing number on the sign, and it says that they're less than an hour out. Then I called my store contact, who spotted my reversing, and he also called the towing company to complain. With an extra pair of eyes, I placed my truck inches from her back bumper, snapped a couple of cell pics for liability coverage, and started unloading. Then karma came calling, self-addressed to Mrs. Self-Important. A compactor garbage truck came through to empty out the mall bins, a little over to the right of Mrs. Self-Important parking spot. After some eye rolls from the garbage truck driver, the empty bin miraculously managed to end up blocking her only path of escape after my tight squeeze parking. Oh crap, she's hemmed in now. So I got a crew of guys unloading me, and we're all anxious knowing that it's about to go down. Finally, the fruits of our labor ripen. The tow truck arrives, looks at the situation we've created, and is nothing but laughs. He's snapping pictures of the mess. He dollies the wheels of the Escalade and slides it perfectly out onto his flatbed. 10 minutes, and he's gone. Security arrived during the tow out and remained, and sure enough, 90 minutes after leaving, Mrs. Self-Important is returning from the medical center, her Rugrats in tow. She goes from zero to righteous nuclear indignation at an instant and demands to know where her car is. One of the guys unloading me hollers, "Oh, the one blocking the loading ramp? It's towed." Her phone is out in an instant, videoing us, claiming harassment, theft, damages, and she's on 911 in a flash, accusing us of stealing her car. Security quickly intervenes, and in the most professionally condescending tone possible, explains the signs, the tow-away loading zone, and the contact for the company who towed it. The region's finest in blue show up and take over. I give a quick statement, and the officers basically say, "Ah, a civil matter." She ends up relenting, defeated, and a taxi's called, and I wrap up unloading my truck under her murderous stare. So I'm rolling out and on my way, and I get a text from the dispatcher saying, "So you're stealing people's cars now?" I don't know how some people think they're above the law. If there's a sign that says no parking between this time and this time, don't park there and then act surprised when you come out to see your vehicle gone. This story's titled, Yes, I understand it's a public street. Now let's learn the difference between legality and civility, okay? This happened in the summer of 2016 when my wife and I moved into our new home on a tree-lined brick street. Nice neighborhood, but nothing fancy. We met the neighbors. My wife made cookies and they invited us to their pool parties and we swapped food stuff and recipes. It was all Ozzy and Harriet. Until I put up a fence around our backyard for security, as anyone could come in off the back alley right up to our porch and our back door. Plus, I wanted to be able to let our two short-haired dogs out to play without having to tie them up or supervise them. Well, our neighbors didn't like that. And who can say why? I never did find out why a fence would bother them so much. 3 things changed. 1, they no longer invited us to their pool parties. 2, we no longer traded cookies and pies. And lastly, they began parking in front of our house out of spite. Now, it's a public street, and you can do as you will, but my 2 spaces were constricted by a telephone pole that had guide wires coming down from it, meaning you'd have to be careful getting in and out of your car lest you scratch the paint, or worse, clothesline yourself with the metal cables. So we had one good spot that lined up our car door with the sidewalk perfectly, and that became their default parking space, despite the fact that they had their spaces and a 2-car garage off in the alley in the back. They also started an illicit piano lessons business and apparently decided to keep their front spots open for their customers. I work odd hours, and it always seemed that there were a line of cars in front of both houses, so I'd end up having to park frustratingly far away, and with winter coming, trudging through slush, carrying groceries had zero appeal. So I watched and waited until one fine fall day with the leaves changing from green to brilliant gold, and a morning chill that promised of winter soon to come. It happened. Their 3 to 5 cars were gone, and nobody was giving piano lessons. I struck. I raced to my dad's and hitched his houseboat to his beater farm truck and towed the combo back home, parking 80 feet of gloriously tacky redneck hardware directly in front of their house, while my vehicle took up our prime spots and most of the telephone tripwire space as well. I left the combo there for almost 2 weeks, right in front of their swing on the porch that they like to sit on in the evenings. Pressure from my wife and the impendingly monthly street sweeping finally led me to removing the blockade, and they've not parked in front of our house since. Nor have we spoken more than 5 words in 2 years, and that's fine by us. The woman can't bake anyhow. And that's it for this episode of r/ProRevenge. If you aren't subscribed, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because I upload videos almost every day. See you guys in the next one.